Brandon Thomason. I'm going to talk to you about NWA's controversial rise to fame. Alright, everyone ready? So I'm going to look at the background of them. And NWA is like a controversial American rap group, and their rise to fame was due to a popular subject and the attention and curiosity around the streets of LA at the time. It sparked in the late 80s when the crack cocaine epidemic was like taking over the streets of LA, and it caused riots, violence, drug gang wars, stuff like that. NWA were American rappers, come from Compton, which is in LA, and the stigma attached to the group was not positive, as it like promoted drugs and violence, and obviously a direct offence against the police force. There's a little picture of what it looked like. So now here are your members. You've got Dr. Dre, who you all probably know, who's at the top there. Ice Cube, DJ Yella, the Arabian Prince, MC Ren and Eazy-E, who died in 1995, and that was due to AIDS. So this is where it began. So you've got a little paragraph here if you want to read it as I'm talking. The original members of NWA were Eazy-E, Dr. Dre and DJ Yella, and this all started when Eazy-E decided that he needed to change the scenery, as he used to be the big drug dealer at the time. And he eventually saved up enough of his own money to start a record label along with this guy called Jerry Heller, who at the time owned his own, and it was called Ruthless Records, and he sort of knew him from previous background. And Dr. Dre and DJ Yella at the time were in a group doing DJing at like weddings and parties, and that was called the World Class Wrecking Crew. And basically they just used to stand there, play tracks over again. So basically Eazy decided to approach Dr. Dre, as he knew him, and DJ Yella joined along, and they sort of started making dance hip-hop music. They eventually got the group together, like with the music behind it, and they recruited some of the local rappers, and this was Ice Cube, MC Ren and the Arabian Prince. Ice Cube and MC Ren were going to be the front men of the group, like the main rappers. Dr. Dre and DJ Yella decided to make the beats and produce it all and stuff like that, and then Eazy just be like the character because he thought he couldn't sing at the time, which I don't think he can. But anyway, they decided that it was going to be a very, very hard thing to get into, because at the time, like it was obscene to sort of talk about what they was talking about, and hardcore sort of gangster rap was seen unmarketable, and basically it never was. So this is the music scene. Gangster rap was seen as a violent, drug-fueled music scene. However, like not a single one of the members of NWA actually had a criminal record at the time. So there's no previous history of criminal convictions, no noticeable influences that sort of inspired them to do this, because there wasn't really at the time. They just wanted to come out, let the people know what was happening in the streets of Los Angeles, and that was like cemented by the late Rodney King incident, which I'll explain later on. So I'm going to give you a little gist of one of the songs, and a little clip in the video, and it just shows, like, basically trying to show what's going on.
Witness the strength of street knowledge.
Straight out of Compton, crazy motherfucker named Ice Cube. From the gang called niggas with attitudes. When I'm called off, I got a sawed off. Squeeze the trigger and bodies are hauled off. You 2-way if you fuck with me. The police are gonna have to come and get me off your ass. That's
So there's like an example of what it was like. Very explicit, sort of, sort of like explaining what's going on. And eventually, when they got the group together, had a few records behind them, they approached national radio around the area, and they just wouldn't touch the music at all. And so they decided to shoot a video, which might help with the promotion of their music. And so they shot it for that, what you've just seen there, straight out of Compton. And they sent it to MTV, but they got a message back, and basically it was signed off as excessive violence and basically just all against the police. It was totally basically politically incorrect. And so the music video just shows like what it consisted of for young black and African American women and men in Los Angeles. Yeah. Then, when MTV decided to say, basically stick two fingers up to them and say, no, we're not playing your music, it's seen as this, that and the other, they then released a song by the title, and that was called Fuck the Police. And yeah, this is when it kicks off. So The Break, that song came with a letter which announced the band of accused in inciting violence against law enforcement and claiming them as responsible for deaths of like 5 police officers at the time. However, NWA made the poster boys of freedom of expression, and this was because of the diversity in the papers, which they also needed to give them the exposure to sort of get the music out there eventually. So in the summer of '89, labels like MTV could not afford to ignore them anymore, and decided to release NWA's record Express Yourself, along with a music video. Although this song was not as explicit as the previous ones, it still sort of had a hidden message in it which still explained what was going on and obviously what the police were doing to it at the time. Further into '89, NWA was rising to fame as like the new boys of the ghetto. And Eazy-E, who was the character in the group, released a single which went platinum, and this gave NWA their like fame to tour the world. And this is called Easy Does It. But I've got a little clip here of one of the songs.
He was once a thug from around the way.
Just get it in a bit.
Easy-E, motherfuckers, cold knocking the boots, cause I'm a hot thugster. I used to be a monster, if you heard. You think I own a drugstore? Getting stupid, because I know how.
Yeah, so you get the sort of gist. Same sort of music again. So, the next part. The Deal. Ice Cube eventually turned on the group when he realised that after these albums were going platinum and they was making sort of a big name for himself, he'd only received 30 grand, and this was for all his royalties on the song Straight Outta Compton, and basically he wrote the song for Eazy-E as well on his album. But to prevent the band from splitting up, Jerry Heller, who was the manager at the time, who's the guy in the right-hand corner, he turned up with a cheque worth 75 grand each, but they couldn't receive it until they sort of signed as a group, and like that was it basically. But Ice Cube then felt that he was being like cheated out of it, so he decided to leave because he thought, I'm just getting ripped off here. But the group decided to continue without him, but seeing him, sort of seeing the way that he left as a sort of backfire on the group and sort of like disowning him in a way. So they started using lyrics, like threatening him and adding fuel to the fire basically for no reason. So the success. Rodney King back then was seen getting brutally beaten by police officers on a tape and caught on camera, but obviously no one believed what was actually happening at the time. So once this video came out, it basically, everything NWA were ever saying or ever had done has sort of been heard and understood for what it was. So I've got a clip here, just play it for a few seconds.
Now the story that might never have surfaced if someone hadn't picked up his home video camera. We've all seen the pictures of Los Angeles police officers beating a man they had just pulled over. The city's police chief said today he will support criminal charges against some of the men. Here's ABC's Gary Shepard.
The 3 police officers facing felony criminal charges were among a group of 15 who stopped a 25-year-old black man last Saturday night, then beat him, kicked him, and clubbed him, unaware that an amateur photographer was recording the incident.
So, yeah, that was pretty horrible, really. So yeah, that sort of like made them like worldwide famous. They sold 3 million albums after that, this, that and the other. And the manager of NWA, Jerry Heller, was basically sticking 2 fingers up to the group because they'd hardly seen any of the money for all the success that they've had. They decided then the group needed more money. So they released another album, which is There's Your Caption. I don't really want to say it, you know, just in case anyone gets offended. But it was released and that went straight to #1 in the pop charts, and it was the first ever hip-hop hardcore album to ever do so. The Fallout, there's a little blurb you can read, and I'll also read. Eventually, Conservatives wanted them banished and thought of them just a bunch of like young thugs, and proceeded to try and ban gangster rap at the time, like because it was classed as violent, and this, however, just kept like raising the profile of the group because it was all the press, papers, stuff like that. This then caused the group to obviously make millions of pounds eventually with the albums and the publicity. Dr. Dre decided he wanted to then renegotiate his contract, as he was the producer of it all, he made the music, stuff like that. So he turned around to Eazy-E and said, basically, I'm not working with this manager anymore, I don't like him, there's something about him. So Dr. Dre turned around and said, it's either me, if I stay he has to go, or if he stays I'm leaving. But Eazy-E decided to keep him, so Dr. Dre then ended up leaving. So it was just the three of them. And my conclusion is, are you ready for this? Yeah, basically back then it was sort of seen as obscene to come out and say all this explicit stuff, and which really it shouldn't be, because if you look at artists nowadays, like I'll take Eminem for an example, if he releases a song which is generally quite explicit and very anti-political, everyone sort of bats an eyelid, whereas if something like that was to get released back in the 80s, it'd be like, oh my god, you can't do that. But now it's like you either listen to it or you don't. You don't sort of treat it in a way that it shouldn't be like they was back then. So, yeah. Any questions?
Any questions, anyone? So were they the first rap group to be political like that?
Well, from where they was from, like that area, like specifically, and obviously all of them being like Black African American, that's why it was so different. Like obviously there was obviously people around at the time, but I'm not really sure as them as a group in that area speaking about what's happening, sort of, I don't know, maybe because I'm really not sure why that actually happened.
Okay. And do you think it was a positive thing that they did, looking back? Has it changed the...
What come out and did what they did?
Has
Yeah,
it changed anything about the world?
Yeah, definitely. You look at artists nowadays, a lot of them are inspired by the likes of these bands. And like, obviously Dr. Dre and your Ice Cubes are still going now and have a massive influence on like the hip-hop scene nowadays. So yeah, definitely I'd say 100%.
Okay, thank you very much.
Cheers.